Okay, hello everyone. It is 2 o'clock according to my computer, and I want to, on behalf of Senator Moriwaki and myself, welcome everyone to our first Kupuna Caucus meeting in 8 months. The last time we were together was exactly 8 months ago on March 6th. So it's a pleasure to hear and see, well, see most of you. Even though virtually. So thank you, everyone. I'm Greg Takayama, a state representative. Unlike Senator Moriwaki, I had the ordeal of having to be reelected if I was able to come back for 2 more years. And I was fortunate enough to be reelected. So happy to join you and Senator Moriwaki for at least 2 more years here at the
Congratulations. Glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can I ask something?
I'm
Hello?
sorry, yes?
I'm asking you something. You say that you're elected. Does this mean you're elected to this body?
No,
I'm sorry,
not necessarily.
This is the first time I'm doing this.
The question is whether Senator Moriwaki and I are elected to serve as co-conveners of the Kupuna Caucus, and the answer is not necessarily. Next month, when we consider our legislative agenda for the forthcoming session, it'll be up to the caucus to approve our continuing as co-conveners. And if anyone has any other nominees in the list to serve as co-conveners, please, by all means, let us know. That would be certainly welcome. Anyway,
thank you.
We have a relatively short agenda. First of all, we'll be hearing from the Director of the State Executive Office on Aging, Caroline Catterall.
Representative, maybe before we start, let's just have everybody introduce themselves, and then, we'll see who's here.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, I started.
Okay, all right. I'm Senator Moriwaki, co-chair, and let's see who else is online. How shall we do this? I don't know. Is there any order?
I don't know. It was your idea.
I'd like to just tell us who you are and where you're from. I mean, what organization, or if you're an individual of interest. I see. Okay.
And may I say, everyone can pick the next person to introduce.
That's an easier way, I think, Sarah. Yep.
Is everybody seeing the same screen here?
No,
I think
mine is flashing back and forth. I don't know. Just
this is going to be interesting.
Okay.
Real quick.
I'll start, Senator. Beverly Gotelli from Pabia. Okay, Sarah.
Sarah Yuan from Pabia.
Okay.
John.
John McDermott, State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. Horace.
Helen Wagner with Kupuna Caucus and Hawaii Family Caregiver Coalition, and Hara. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Toby Hazel. I live in senior housing now in Hilo, but previous to that, I was very active in the Puna district to get us a senior center and some activities.
Very good. Thank you. Welcome.
Barbara Yamashita, Pabia.
Okay.
Barbara Service, Pabia, KARP and Kupuna Council.
Okay. Lei, you want to introduce yourself? I see you.
Lei Lerman from Wahiwa, just interested Kupuna.
Very good. Former representative.
Thank you.
And I'm Louis Littlefaith from the Mountain Prosecutor's Office.
But this way you can see everybody.
Louis, are you with which prosecutor's office?
Maui Prosecutor's Office. I know it says Kathy. I'm on my wife's computer. Okay.
You didn't look like a Kathy.
Deborah Stonewalls, Maui County Office on Aging.
Thank you.
I'm Jeanette Kojane from Kokuamau. Oli Tomoso, I just became 67.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Okay.
Kathy Wyatt from Pabia and Hawaii Family Caregiver Coalition and the Kupuna,
What
Kupuna
happened? She just went in there for a regular arm surgery. Yeah, shoulder.
Right, so if you're speaking, can you mute if you're not speaking?
I'm Rick Tabor, and I'm with now I'm with Generations Magazine, Kupuna Council, Alzheimer's Association, HPGS, and on and on and on.
Oh yeah, I'm also on the HPGS board. Sorry, I'm supposed to be writing an article for HPGS. So yeah, HPGS, go, go, go.
Okay, thank you.
I'm from Kupuna Council. I'm Sam Trad. I'm with Compassion and Traces.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what happened because she was fine yesterday when we took her in. I mean, the other day when we took her in.
James Gashel, National Federation of the Blind.
Okay, thank you.
Senator, perhaps the meeting could mute the people that are not.
Charles, yeah, could you mute everybody unless you raise your hand and then you can introduce yourself? How about that?
Hi, Kathy J. Cox, AARP, HPGS, and Faith Action for Community Equity.
Ian Ross, Alzheimer's Association.
Larry Ta'aka from HARA with the Machinist Retirees Association.
Shelley with Pabia.
Lisa Nakao from Executive Office on Aging.
Horace Farr from Hawaii County Office of Aging.
Aloha Takahashi with Agency on Elderly Affairs from Kauai.
Derek Ariyoshi, Elderly Affairs Division, City and County of Honolulu.
Caroline Kadirao, Executive Office on Aging.
Scott Spillane, Honolulu Prosecutor's Office, Elder Abuse Unit.
Debbie Shimizu, Executive Office on Aging.
Christine Nishita, UH, Center on Aging.
Christina Valenzuela, Executive Office on Aging.
Michio from UH Center on the Family.
Doug Matsuoka, Hawaii Meals on Wheels, the other Meals on Wheels.
Michelle Cordero Lee, Hawaii Meals on Wheels.
Diane Tirada, Catholic Charities.
Clementina Seryu-Ulep from Faith Action for Community Equity Long-Term Care Task Force.
Hope Young from Kokomo.
Ray Rice, Adult Protective Services.
This is Paige Heckathorn Choi from the Healthcare Association of Hawaii, and my colleague Robert Choi is also on the line. No relation, but just thought we could do the double introduction at once.
Amy Prusa, Hawaii State House, Wahiwa.
Okay, I think that's it. All right.
Sorry, just one more.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Pedro Haro, Executive Director of the American Lung Association. Hi, everybody. Haven't seen a lot of you in a long time, but
I know.
here I am in my new role.
Hi, Pedro.
Sorry, me too. Sorry, Rep Takayama. Hi, everybody. It's good to see all of you. Dr. Balazs, Kokua Kalihi Valley, Ludalila Home, and Chaminade University.
Thank you. Hi, thank you, Doctor. Nice to see you.
You too. See you. Okay, shall we proceed then?
Yes, we'll start with a short presentation from Caroline Katarov from Executive Office on Aging, giving us a administrative budget update on status of our Kupuna Care, Kupuna Caregiver, as well as Healthy Aging and other budget-related admin programs, as well as anything else going on. So I'll turn the floor over to you, Caroline.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you so much, Senator Moriwaki and all of your staff. Before we get started, though, there's some faces I have not seen in like 8, 9, how many months was it? So it's really good to see everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. And I just want to thank everyone. This has been such an unprecedented time. And I think everyone's just doing their best, serving our community in all different capacities. So thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, I can't. I was disabled.
Charles can help you, I think.
Oh, Charles, if you can just allow me to, I should have sent it to him. I'm sorry, but I have the short slide presentation.
Give it a try now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what I wanted to do today, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I just wanted to give everyone an update on where EOA is at for upcoming priorities for the legislative session, and also an update on our Kupuna Caregivers program. Okay, well, I want to go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the Executive Office on Aging has put in a legislative proposal for the Kupuna Caregivers program, which I'm going to talk about later. Also, we're asking for that fix. This is a housekeeping measure to our Alzheimer's disease and related dementia coordinator's position. As you know, we have the funding for it. This is the same issue we had last session. We just don't have the 1.0 full-time equivalent for the position. So we need to just get that resolved so that we can go ahead and hire for that position. Some of our ongoing important initiatives, of course, is the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program and our Healthy Aging Program. And I wanted to also share, and most of you have known this, that in the past, our ADRC base budget is $3.1 million. What I also want to share, though, is that our Kupuna Care budget is now at $9 million as our base budget. So in the past, how we've had to go in and ask for the additional 4.1, I have confirmed that we don't have to do that now. It is at 9 million. So this is we have to tap ourselves on the back and say thanks to everybody for their continued advocacy efforts for that. So that's finally happened. So I'm glad about that. Now I'd like to shift to the Kupuna Caregivers program, and I will go through this and I will provide it to Senator Moriwaki's office so we can share this with all of you. I'll convert it to PDF and send it over so they can share it with you after. But I'd like to start off with, there is the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving did a survey of caregivers during this COVID pandemic, and it showed that 83% of reported caregivers said that they have increased stress. 42% noted that the additional help that they used to have has declined during the pandemic, and that 280 of the respondents' main source of stress was the increased responsibility due to the isolation caused by the pandemic. And what I'd like to share is that these are the same things that we're seeing here in Hawaii, but I want to also show that, you know, the national perspective. One of the questions that they asked of the caregivers is, what is the biggest change over the last 2 to 3 months for you personally related to your role as a caregiver? And really it was about pressure has mounted, increased social isolations, concern about well-being and safety, loss of support, and how that's affecting not just their loved ones they're caring for, but themselves as well. And that's very important and something that I think as we look at the Kupuna Caregiver Program and understanding the intent of it, that we need to keep that in mind. And then also we did a survey. Now I want to preface the survey that this was done in the first quarantine, the one we had back in April. So we did a survey of all of our service providers in our network that our area agencies have contracts with, and 98% did have a plan to resume services. 80% had a process in place to determine prioritization. And then we asked a question about capacity. And this was, remember, this was very early on before we really had the different phases and all of that. So 56% at that point, this was back in end of April, May timeframe, felt they could resume services at full capacity, 23% at 3/4 capacity, 15% at half capacity, and then 5% at 1/4 capacity. I'd be interested to do the survey again to see if those numbers are still the same, but this is also one of the reasons when I get into the data, it'll make sense of why the data has gone a little down with the Kupuna Caregiver Program. Part of it is because of capacity. The Kupuna Caregiver Program prior to COVID, so we took this to mean, I know that March 16th is very fresh in our minds, so that's when we had the shutdown, but we said pre-COVID was July through March for the purposes of what we were looking at. And then we said COVID was the April through June timeframe. So we did see an 8% increase in the numbers served. So we were serving 121 individuals in the last prior pre-COVID. We saw a 9% increase in services delivered, and those included adult daycare, transportation, homemaker, and personal care. And this is important, average per month. And the reason I'm only bringing up adult daycare services is because that was the greatest utilization service, was about 9,441 hours of adult daycare was provided per month. So this goes to my next slide. So this is the impact COVID had within adult daycare. As you can see, we were at the 9,000 hours per month. And then when COVID hit, we dropped down to about 2,100 hours of service per month. And again, many, many reasons. They're not all just one reason. Oh, hold on, can you just shut my door? Thank you. Sorry, I left my door open. So this was many reasons we're going to get into later of why the drop. And I think a lot of you probably know the reasons, but I just wanted to share this with you. So what I'd like to do next is share with you where we're at in our new state fiscal year, which started July of this year, and the first quarter ended at the end of September. So right now we are serving 65 caregivers throughout the state. And these are the services by hours that we're providing. Right now, for the first quarter, adult daycare was at 15,000 hours, homemaker at 52 hours, personal care at 23 hours, in-home respite at 7 hours. So these are the hours for the whole quarter, 3 months, that we provided over the last 3 months. Again, remembering that July, August timeframe, we had that huge surge in COVID cases. So that contributed partially with the reasons that we're going to get into to these numbers. Again, it is very hard to project and to plan in COVID because we don't know when we're going to be out of this, when we're going to get a vaccine, when there's so many different phases, when we're going to be in different phases, how much more can be opened up or maybe restricted going forward. So the best I could do was to take the utilization of the first quarter and times it by 4. So that gave us, if we do a 2021 projection, that gives us about 60,000 hours of adult daycare, which is quite a bit less than what we provided in 2020. Okay, some of the reasons, and I think, and you're all very savvy and you all know this, but I think to help to, it's good to talk about is that many of the caregivers that are in our program have lost their jobs. You realize that this is to support working caregivers in the community. So part of the eligibility is that they are employed. So if they've lost either their job or their 30 hours a week, they're no longer eligible for the program. That's the first thing. Other thing is that there is a lot of hesitation to send among caregivers to send their loved ones either into the community, like adult daycare, or also to bring someone into their home that's not part of their circle of support or part of that circle. So bringing in someone from the outside, not knowing if they're asymptomatic, is very problematic. We have had openings and closings and reopenings of adult daycare centers statewide through the since March. So that's played a huge impact on the data that we're looking at. Some of our providers have actually had to close business and won't be reopening. So that had an impact on our services. And then also transportation decreased because they also have to take into consideration spacing in vans to make sure that people aren't sitting too close together. So again, even social distancing within transportation has become problematic. And the reason I wanted to bring up all of these situations, because it's not a one problem type of thing. It's very, each island have had their different, and each county have had their different reasons why we've seen this decrease. But what I really want to impress is that this program is still very, very important. And we have to look at, are there ways we could do things differently so that we can support? Because the need is still there. We have caregivers, we have care recipients. They all have needs. That hasn't gone away. What the overlying layer here is the pandemic. So, and I think we all realize that. But what we have done with that legislative proposal that I shared with you earlier is that we are looking at more flexibility with the program, where we can look at possibly reducing the 30-hour requirement during like a state of emergency during a pandemic or natural disasters. We're looking for greater flexibility on how we can deliver the services and supports. And we have some ideas around that, possibly offering a Kupuna caregiver directed service program, which is very similar if you're familiar with our participant directed program. That's an option that we're looking at, because then people can hire their own services and supports, maybe among family or friends that are part of their circle of supports, that they wouldn't be concerned about bringing into their home to provide those services. So these are the ideas that we have put forward in our legislative proposal that I wanted to share with you. And really, it's just opening up that flexibility, because everything is still so uncertain with the pandemic. And because of how our lives have changed so much with the pandemic, we can no longer do business as usual. So these are some of the ideas that we presented in our legislative proposal that's up with the governor right now. And I just also wanted to add before I close that this isn't just, how do I put, this is not just a Kupuna caregiver service delivery issue. This spans all of our services and supports across our different funding sources. But I just wanted to share with you today where we're at as our status for the Kupuna caregiver program. And Representative Takayama, did I want to open it up for questions at this point?
Thank you, Caroline. Before we open it up to questions, let me take care of a couple of things. Number one, can you provide a copy of your PowerPoint presentation to us, and then we will distribute it to members of the Kupuna Caucus, make it available?
No problem.
Second question somebody, Rick asked, is whether this is being, this session is being recorded, and yes, it is, and it will be available on Facebook. By the way, this session right now as we speak is available on Facebook. So it's far beyond the 62 of us participating. Anyone can tune in, so keep that in mind. Next, I'm going to ask anyone who has a question to either present it on chat box or raise their hand so that we can sort of manage the 60+ people who are online as we speak. And so we have a couple of people who have expressed interest in asking questions. And okay, question is, let me start. Under which Facebook account is this available? Charles, do you have that information?
Yeah, it's going to be on there's a link on the Hawaii Senate Facebook page. So facebook.com/Hawaii Senate. And it's also on Senator Moriwaki's Facebook page as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so for questions, let's start with Ian Ross, followed by Pedro Haro. Ian, go ahead.
I think I was raising my hand earlier when they were talking about introductions. So I'm going to lower that now.
Okay, Pedro.
Thank you for that. And Caroline, thank you so much for you and your staff thinking this through as far as the services that are needed. And I would be really happy to see if there is in fact stipulations that are added, as far as pandemics and natural disasters, whereas the impetus of the bill was to be able, or the original program was to help working caregivers. When those working caregivers can't work, it doesn't change the need, as you pointed out. So I wonder if there might be something that could be tied into unemployment or any of these other services that are already that we are already checking verification for in the state. So in that, because that is how a lot of the other services, right? The $500 card for food, all of these other services that are being provided are being directed to those who are most in need. Now, that being said, when we were first drafting this program, the reason we went with working caregivers is because there was a very minute amount of funds that were available. So if possible, it'd be wonderful to be able to figure out how do we, during these times of extreme crisis and caregiver isolation, how are we able to provide services so that these funds don't go unused, right? So that even if people are not able to meet the qualifications, giving the most flexibility to be able to help caregivers in need who were either cannot go back to work because they have young children and elderly, et cetera, et cetera. We're just in such a dire situation that I think building in as much flexibility into the eligibility of the program would be key. So it's not really a question, but really just a commendation and a comment on that. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, though. I totally agree with what Pedro was saying, because it's just such a different world we're in now. I think anyone knows who probably saw me testify in the last 2 years. I was like, no, we can't change. We can't be flexible. We need to, make sure we can follow this data. But right now, it's just we need flexibility. And I totally agree with that.
Next questions we have from Haoli, followed by Kathy Wyatt, and then Rick. Haoli, go ahead.
Yeah, hello, aloha kako from Maui. I know that we have a base budget amount in Kupuna Care and ADRC, and knowing that in this present reality, fiscal reality, and in the upcoming session, are the fiscal processes the same in the same competitive way, or that have always been run, or are there priorities already being set given the fact of the deficit of the state budget in relation to other deficits? So that what does base budget mean now in this post-COVID time? What does a base budget really mean, or does it really mean the same thing as it has in past sessions and in past fiscal cycles? Thank you.
Haoli, I'm going to ask, I'm sorry to intervene, but we're going to talk a little bit about the budget situation right after Caroline's presentation. So can we hold off on that question?
No problem. No problem.
Okay,
thank you.
Kathy?
Yep. Hi. I wanted to expand a little bit on what Pedro said and tell Carolyn that I'm excited to hear that they're going to try to work on reducing the required hours for caregivers. But the thing that people don't recognize, I think, is that even though the caregivers are not working, the Kupunas still need the stimulation they were getting in adult daycare, and there's been a lot of decline. And I just want to put that in the pot there so that as you're talking, you'll understand that, and then maybe they'll be even more lenient on the requirements.
Thank you,
Question mark.
Kathy. Rick Tabor?
Sure. So I've asked this before, but so when folks are calling in for the services, for Kupuna caregiver kind of services, are we, I've been told that we haven't necessarily taken their names. Are we doing a wait list at this point and keeping track of who's calling? So we know the numbers out there that need the services? What are we doing with that at this point? So in the past, people would call and they'd be told that there's no money, or we're not taking any names right now, call back in 6 months. Have we improved on that, Carolyn?
I think to answer that, Rick, I would say that, you know, we haven't been doing especially during COVID, an exerted effort of like marketing and outreach for the Kupuna Caregiver Program. But to back up from that is when, and I'm probably speaking for our area agencies on aging, but when they do their assessment, it's really, hi, how may I help you? Is how we are starting, and we're doing training around this, right? We're going to be doing training in the next month around this too, but we're starting with that. And then, you know, finding out, assessing them before we get, now some people may call and say, hey, my neighbor is in this Kupuna Caregiver Program, and then we'll start speaking to that. But usually we want to assess their needs, really looking at it holistically and how we can build supports around that. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, kind of. Well, let me broaden it a little bit. So when you're doing the assessments, are we documenting what people are calling for? So we know the numbers of folks that are calling for different services. And I'm asking that because I come from a mental health background, and I learned long ago, way long ago, with these money issues, that if we weren't tracking what the needs were, we weren't going to get the funding for them. And so it became real important to keep track of that. So are the departments, is that the approach that we're taking at this point?
We actually have it built into our database system that we use, is actually topics, a topic area. So as a caller comes in, we'll check off. They may be asking about meals. They may be asking about having their house cleaned, whatever it may be, transportation. Right. But sometimes they may say they need that. They may say, oh, I really need to get a home delivered meal. After you start assessing them, you find out, oh my gosh, this person used to be a chef and loves to cook, but still can cook a little. Maybe they just need help with homemaker services that can provide shopping assistance for them. So, you know, it's really assessing what their needs are. We do track, though, the callers' topic areas that they call about. So to answer your question, yes, we do.
Okay.
Could I say something, please? So I'm from the Big Island, and I used caregiver services a couple of times. I fell down and I needed some help through ADRC here. I found this system very difficult. By the time they evaluated me and it went down the pipeline and some vendor had to talk to some person who lived down the street from me, it took weeks for this little gal who lived near me to come to my house. And by the time she got there, there was some end date that I knew nothing about that was put into a computer somewhere. So a couple of visits later, she had to stop. So I went, who the heck was the head of that thing at the time? Dr. Alameda, who now has left for the Bay Clinic or someplace. No matter how many times he was spoken to about this, I'm not aware that it was fixed. The flexibility of not entering an end date into some crazy computer without telling the person, anybody about it, seemed very, very difficult to deal with, to deal with. And the length of time it was taking to actually get someone in your house. By that time, my leg was better. So for some people, a temporary service is very important to them. And that means now, not 2 months from now. So
thank you.
There has to be a way to deal with that.
We need to, can we move on and ask for any other questions? I don't see any in the chat box, and we do have a full agenda. So Caroline, thank you very much for the presentation. I know that there will be many more questions in the next few months, but
Yeah.
let's move on to, and what I wanted to address at this point was something that was alluded to by both Haoli and Caroline, and that's the state's financial situation.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I think the fact that money was put into the administration's budget for Kupuna Care in the amount of $9 million and $3 million for the ADRCs is huge. What that basically means is that the budget that is submitted by the governor to the legislature starts with these amounts of funds in it. So that normally what happens is that the legislature needs to add money in to the state budget to provide for funds for Kupuna Care and other programs. In this case, it's in the budget. It starts with, and that's what's called the base. So the legislature would actually have to act to remove it from the administration's proposed budget rather than having to add it on proactively. So again, it's huge, and a credit to Governor Ige for recognizing our Kupuna needs. And so that's the good news. The bad news is that we are about to embark on a budget year that we have not seen for decades. Our next fiscal year will be in the red by $1.2 billion. Now, this past fiscal year, we've gotten by. We've gotten federal CARES money in the amount of almost $1.3 billion to cushion the blow. We've spent down, we had state reserves of more than $500 million. Well, that's all gone. That cushioned the blow for the state of Hawaii. But going on to next year, we're about to face a $1.2 billion without that cushion, without the assurance of federal money, and without the ability to spend any of our cash reserves, because we have none. So, long story short, it'll be a very difficult year in which to ask for money to be spent on programs. Essential programs like Kupuna services, we know are important, but a number of other groups and those who are involved in other types of programs consider their needs just as important, believe it or not. And so it'll be a very tough year. And Senator Moriwaki, do you have anything you wanted to add at this point?
I think Representative Takayama brings up, the what faces us not just next year, but we're looking at possibly 4 years. So looking at how we budget what we do have and preserving that, and looking at policies, how we could make it go further. I think it's really important for us to start working together to look at that and look at policy changes during this time, rather than asking for more funds because the funds aren't there, but using the funds we do have in a more strategic way as we go forward.
So on that point, let's talk about bill proposals. We have a couple of people who would like to submit proposals. Thank you, Charles, for putting that up. And so let's start out with the representative from Kupuna Council and members of the Kupuna Caucus. Bear in mind that for this meeting, we're just listening to ideas for legislation for 2021. We're limited to introducing 10 bills, and we'll be hearing ideas for a lot more than that. But at this point, we just want to hear out the ideas for legislation, and at next month's meeting, we will try and winnow them down to 10 priority measures that the Kupuna Caucus can support. Okay, so yes.
One more thing, so that we ask everybody to submit their proposals, but we also know that some haven't yet proposed some of their ideas. So we're keeping open the books until the end of the month. But at that point, we'll close it and we'll start listing the proposals for discussion and voting at December meeting.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Kupuna Council, who is,
I'm here. Thank you, Greg. This is
thank you.
Lila,
Please proceed.
President of the Kupuna Council. As you can see on the share screen, these are some of the things that we would like to have reintroduced and reconsidered. We support reintroducing the 2019-2020 Kupuna Caucus package, those measures which did not succeed. And you see in front of you, I hope all of you can see in front of you, the ones that did not succeed, we would like to have reintroduced. We are also suggesting reintroduction of some other proposals, the Ombudsman's proposal that we had introduced years ago. And really, that's it. Lourdes, did you want to add anything? Lourdes from Kupuna Council?
Yes, I do. This measure was introduced back a couple of years ago, and because of what happened with COVID, it kind of just fell by the wayside. So I wanted to bring this back to amend the requirements for a condominium association by deleting the option for a condominium owner to give the proxy to the board as a whole. And I just wanted to explain why. And since 1996, this fourth proxy went on to being entered in 514B. At that time, the Real Estate Commission also testified with a letter. We question if the amendment will provide for more abuse on the use of proxies and whether a new set of proxies will appear, such as a new type of proxies and or challenges to the proxies. Well, there has been challenges in the last 20 years to remove these options because people believe all with the determination to abolish too much power in the hands of a few for too long. And how we can track this much more efficiently is recently the proxies are necessary for owners who are unable to attend the meetings. But on August 19th, 2020, I attended a webinar by Atlas Insurance.
Sorry, Lourdes, I don't want to cut you off, but can you summarize? We have a number of other bills. So yeah, can you move on, please?
Just summarize is that the directors and officers insurance claims are escalating. In fact, Hawaii has the highest claims on challenges to the board on their authority because they're not knowledgeable about their project documents. And so it's getting more noticeable because now owners are challenging it and going to court, and it's reflecting on the insurance industry.
Thank you. Can you go on to the next one, please? The condominium ombudsman.
Okay, so that's an idea that I threw out and in discussion with Senator Moriwaki. It'll take a lot more work on this one, but I wanted everyone to know because in the Kupuna Council forum, we asked the mayor, who both of them candidates supported the ombudsman to assist owners in condominiums who need help in the process in Department of Planning and Permitting. And they're so inundated with all of these complaints, questions, whatever they need from a condo owner, that by shifting funds from the educational fund to support a salary position, I believe would be helpful for the condo owner to wade through all of the expectations that is needed for jurisdiction safety codes.
Okay, thank you, Lourdes. At this point, I want to thank Kupuna Council for your proposals. Let me mention first of all that the two condominium related bills were not Kupuna Caucus priority measures. However, the first one was introduced last year and passed the House and died in the Senate. At this point, Helen Wagner is raising her hand. Helen?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. This is a time when we've had a hard year because I understand with the virus, a lot of, in fact, nothing has really been passed. When we asked where all the things were, and it seemed even communications we weren't able to communicate. And this ruling that we had of supporting an omnibus for the care busman for the care homes, it just fell out of off the chart. Nothing's happening. And we have, as you've seen, people taking out their parents from the care homes because they're in isolation there. There's a lot of
Helen,
mental problems.
did you have a question related to Kokua Council? Because we're taking up the ombudsman.
Okay.
We're going to hear from John right after this.
Okay, then.
So, okay,
we're here to support that issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Turn it to John.
Okay, thank you for Kokua Council for your input and ideas. Let me mention first of all that last session's 10 Kupuna Caucus measures, because of the suspension of the session due to COVID, all of them except for one failed to pass. The one bill that did pass related to Pabia's proposal to redo how they calculate a quorum. So that actually was signed into law. All the other bills did not. And we actually, at this point, have automatically put them on the list for consideration of reintroduction, okay? So we don't need to rehash all of them at this point. We can talk further about them at the next meeting. At this point, let's hear from our long-term care ombudsman. John, are you there?
Here, thank you very much. Okay, well, I'm praying for lots of Canadian snowbirds and the Japanese tourist bubble and everything that we need to get the economy going again. Last year, Senate Bill 2337 and House Bill 1872 passed all the committees, and it looked like it was going to get signed by the governor until COVID. And those bills would create a full-time ombudsman for Kauai, full-time ombudsman for Maui, full-time ombudsman for Hilo side of the Big Island, one for the Kona side of the Big Island, and 2 for Oahu. So we have close to 13,000 long-term care residents, and we have a staff of me. We had an Oahu position. We lost that in 2015 when the Office on Aging was reorganized. 2017, we got that back, but it still has not been filled. I don't know why that's taking so long. But with COVID, things are now much more complicated because there's a lockdown, for instance. I may not be able to fly to a neighbor island. And one of the things that we agreed to with the Healthcare Association of Hawaii, following the CDC recommendations, is that I'm only going to go into one facility per day. And so if you look at an island like Hawaii, where they have 33 facilities, I would have to make 33 trips just to cover every facility on that island. Whereas if somebody lives there, it's much more easy because now I'm also paying for a rental car and I'm also paying for the airplane. So it makes a lot more sense for people on the ground who know the local community. Jackie Gardner is our contractor, part-time contractor for Hilo. Brent Fremont is our practicum, contractor for Maui. And that's a part-time job. And we would be happy if we could get that because we realize the economy right now is really bad. Our goal is still a full-time position for each of the islands, which we've been asking since I started in 1998. But even if we could get a part-time contractor for all of the islands, that would greatly help. We have been involved in infection control issues in the past where we saw things, we reported it to the administrator, we were able to resolve problems before they became worse. During this pandemic, we were not allowed to go in, but in late September, CMS said that ombudsmen are considered essential workers, and we now are allowed in. Unfortunately, many of our volunteers are seniors, and they're afraid to go in. So a volunteer is great, but is not really an accurate substitute for a full-time paid worker. If it's your job, you have to go in, you do it. So that's what we're still advocating for.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John? And seeing none, let's move on to the Maui Prosecutor's Office. Yes, sir, you have the floor.
Hi, Lou Littlepage. I think my question has been answered. Representative informed me that just now that they're going to be reintroducing the bills that didn't make it through last year. I will be glad to give a presentation of it like at the next meeting if possible. This is the bill that basically increased the penalties for assaults on seniors, thefts from seniors. It was very successful with the legislature. We had 34 of the 50 representatives signed on as supporting introducing that bill, and we had 12 of the senators signed on as representing that bill. I do believe it will make it through this time. Thank you very much. We will look forward to having the support of the Kupuna Caucus. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I think it's. I think I agree. The bill was well received. We just need to convince our chairs of the judiciary committees to give it favorable consideration. There was some resistance from public defenders and ACLU and some other groups, but you know, I think this is one of the measures that needed more than one session to be understood. But thank you. Let's try again.
I'd like to add something. If you can get the other prosecutors' offices together, I believe in collaboration, and you know, it's a good concept. We really need it because the seniors are so vulnerable, and so therefore they're really open to attack by those who, you know.
We have with us also today Scott Spallina from the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office, who's very much in support of it.
And I don't want to take too much time, but if you can, in the interim before the December meeting, have a meeting and then look at how we might even amend the bill so that we can get full support of the legislature, because this does not involve money, but it does involve a very important policy that we should be.
And I'm glad you recognize that this is not a financial bill. So hopefully you'll have an easier time passing, especially these days. And to give Maui prosecutors their credit, last year when they did introduce this, they went to all the counties, all the neighbor islands to get support and their input in this, as well as the different police departments as well in each county. So they've been very collaborative in this effort.
If we can get your email addresses, we might want to pursue this some more in terms of what may have been a problem last time that we can overcome this time.
Definitely, yes.
And I will send mine also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Scott. Let's move on to the National Federation of the Blind, Hawaii. James, you want to talk about your proposal?
Yes, thank you very much. I represent the National Federation of the Blind of Hawaii. We're a membership organization of blind people. In this case, we're speaking as well for people who have print disabilities, not necessarily vision impairments, but disabilities that impair their ability to read print. And our fundamental problem is access to information, most of which comes in the form of print. So I'll just outline this very quickly. Our request is to have the legislature enact authority for the Public Utilities Commission to implement a persons with print disabilities public communications and information access service, similar to what's been done in quite a few other states. Texas and Georgia are, I guess, the two biggest programs of this type. Now, fundamentally, the the group that I'm talking about, persons with print disabilities in Hawaii, means about 50,000 people. And it is comprised of people who just can't see or can't see very well. You know, our Kupuna are a majority of this group because we tend to lose vision with lots of different kinds of visual impairments as we age. Now, so the whole population in Hawaii is about 50,000 people that can use this service. Just imagine if, you know, you couldn't read a newspaper anymore, and just imagine if you can't see the emergency warnings that crawl across the bottom, I guess it is, of the TV screen. I can't see the TV screen, so I don't know if they're at the bottom or the top, but they're somewhere there, but I can't see them. Just imagine if you can't even read what's on sale at the grocery store, you know, this week, and lots of other essential information. These are the daily experiences of people with print disabilities. Now, currently, there is a program to address this problem, and it is paid for under a contract with the Department of Human Services, and it's a year-to-year contract. It's existed for about 5 years. It's at about $50,000 a year. They're very happy with the service, and they have identified it as an essential service during the COVID period, but we're also concerned about the budget situation that has been described. We think that support under the Public Utilities Commission, getting this off the state budget, is a better way to do this. And so it would save the state money and it would continue the service. So our request to the legislature this year is going to be to ask that that authority be enacted and that we work with the Public Utilities Commission to get this program on a more sound and secure financial future for the future. Mahalo for your consideration in adding these to the priorities of the Kupuna Caucus.
Thank you, James. Tell us, how much money are we talking about?
So it depends a little bit on how the program is configured, but I would say a minimum of $50,000 and certainly no more than $100,000 annually.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions for you. And okay, let me note we have a couple more presenters. We have Jim Sean, followed by Toby Hazel, and then Ian Ross from Alzheimer's Association. Okay, so let me turn it over to Jim Sean, Kokua Council. Jim, are you there? Okay, let's skip on to Toby Hazel. Would you like to present? Ms. Hazel, okay, I don't see her on. Let's move on to Ian Ross. Ian?
Okay, there. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there you are. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so what I wanted to say, to put in, was there seems to be a problem with ADA compliance, at least on the Big Island. And I was told that there was some kind of court-appointed list of things to do for park and recreation. And nobody follows through and does these things. So at the beach parks here, sometimes there's no hand railings. Sometimes the hand railings aren't connected. It's extremely dangerous and slippery. And there's some kind of weird disconnect between Park and Recreation, who takes control of the land. Now the fire department owns the, what are these guys called? The lifeguards. And there's some other department that has to do with the water itself.
Ms. Hazel, I'm sorry, but the issue you're talking about is a county issue. So shouldn't this be addressed at the county level on the Big Island?
No, some of it's county, some of it's state. And there's always a problem with getting the county and the state to work together to solve a problem. These are simple problems. I could tie a rope
and solve the problem at the beach park where I go, but somebody would take that rope down. I would have to buy rope and tie it every single time I go to the beach park.
So do you actually have a bill that you would like the Kupuna Caucus to consider?
I sure would like a bill that would somehow allow the state and the counties to immediately work together when there's a safety issue for seniors or disabled people. I don't know how to do that, but yeah, I wish there was a bill that cut across all of this just foot dragging that goes on.
Okay, thank you. Let's take that under advisement. Is there any other proposal you'd like to consider?
One other point has to do with the fresh food program. Honolulu took our fresh food program away from us. They told us, oh, you have this wonderful fresh food program for seniors, but everybody should have it. And since we don't have enough money for everybody to have it, you can't have yours. And now the only thing that's left is this $50 coupon, which not everybody can get. So I just don't understand this. I think this was Ann Kobayashi. Why is that
which fresh food program are you talking about?
It was, you know, I don't remember how many different people were involved with delivering this local fresh food to seniors at senior centers on our island for, 5-10 years it went on. And you could talk to Richard Ha. He was one of the people.
Okay, well, let us look into that further, if you would.
I want to say one more thing. Not canned food, not dead food like we got delivered to us during COVID. These dead ag foods don't help anybody. They are not nutrition for children or for seniors. Please, somebody pass a bill, figure out how to pass a bill to give people real food. Thank you.
Okay, fresh produce. All right, any questions for Ms. Hazel? If not, let's go back to Ian Ross.
Thank you, Representative. So the two proposals that I have for the Kupuna Caucus are not the two that people are seeing on screen currently. The first will be something which we've already heard a lot about, so I won't spend much time on it. It's to support the Kupuna Caregivers Program. In the past, we've been working with other representatives and senators, but I believe working directly with at least the last two cycles. Kupuna Caucus, I think, is the right vehicle. I won't say much more because we've already had the Executive Office on Aging talk about the needs. But I would support keeping it at the 1.5 million. I think strategically playing defense does make a lot of sense and would put us in line with the governor's package. Furthermore, I'm changing it slightly on the spot, but after we heard from EOA, last year we had fought for increasing the required work hours from 30 to 20. But I believe that idea we just heard that would instead be during emergency situations, waiving that requirement makes a lot of sense. And I think that would be the appropriate vehicle after the presentation we just heard. Second, it's something else we heard a little bit about. It's supporting actually I got backwards. Kupuna Caucus did support the Kupuna Caregivers Program last time. This next one we worked with others. The Alzheimer's Coordinator and Alzheimer's Disease and Related Dementia Services Coordinator, funding it at, I have the number right here, funding it at $59,616 per year. That was what was signed as Act 217. By the governor, but had a typo previously, which meant the funding wasn't released. I don't really see the number needing to change all that much from that number. And this would help with the implementation of the Alzheimer's state plan. To add a little bit to before COVID, it was the most expensive disease in Hawaii and across America. 1 in 3 seniors that currently pass away have some form of Alzheimer's disease. 6th leading cause of death, and unfortunately with the current news we just got back from the CDC, we still don't have any medication on the market that can slow the progress. We were hoping for really good news today, but we unfortunately didn't get.
I'd like to say something about this, please. You
I'm sorry,
said
Toby, can we hold off until Ian is done, please? Let him finish first, please.
He's not done
Thank you.
yet.
And so the final thought is we'd really hoped that we would kick it over the finish line with the not the special session, but the reconvening. We came close. It did cross over from both the House and the Senate, two versions. We had a lot of momentum. The year prior it did pass, but there was discovered by the lawyers a very small typo which didn't allow the release of the funds. And I'll add that the federal government is going to partially support the Alzheimer's coordinator position through the BOLD Act. We were one of 15 states awarded funds from the CDC. So we are going to be able to get some support. And I think for those reasons, the Alzheimer's coordinator bill has a lot of momentum behind it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. Ms. Hazel, did you have a question for Ian?
Well, yes. I know that there was an $11 million study for Hawaii. And one of the things I participated in that from the Big Island. And we have a lot of hepatitis C people who absolutely have dementia. And it was a real big struggle to get that one word into this study and get monies, not just for Alzheimer's, but for people who have other dementia-related diseases. Because when you're caretaking them, it's very, very difficult if you don't have some support. And so I would really like to see, first of all, that Alzheimer's, when you say related dementia diseases, that you say Hep C, because there's a huge population here. And to identify that clearly is important. I mean,
Thank you, Ms. Hazel. Ian, did you want to respond?
Sure, very briefly. When we say related dementia, we are referring to other forms of cognitive decline, Lewy body, frontal lobe dementia. We're talking about certain dementias that are more related to brain injury. I will say, though, that one of the big costs of dementia isn't just the dementia by itself. It's that it makes every additional disease the person may have more expensive. So hepatitis wouldn't be a related dementia, but I hear you on it being something which can go hand in hand and become more complicated, certainly.
Let me tell you, Hep C people toward the end have extreme dementia.
Thank you. We did not hear from Jim Sean. He wasn't on. Jim, are you on now? Last call. Okay. If not, we will be sending out a copy of all the measures that we heard about, as well as any others that are submitted to us before the end of the month. I want to thank all of you for participating. Once again, a reminder that if you have any ideas for future Kupuna Caucus discussions, please forward them to me or to Senator Moriwaki. And at this point, I'm going to thank all of you for participating, and it will not be another 8 months before we see each other again. We are scheduled to do this again first Friday in December. So look forward to seeing all of you then. Senator Moriwaki, anything you want to add?
That's great. We'll see you all in December. Be sure to look at the bills. Charles will be sending it out. And if you will look at all those bills and come ready to discuss and vote in December.
Okay, we'll see you. Have a nice weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.